Yeah.
Hello?
You don't happen to have an iPhone charger cord on you, do you?
I don't.
No, I don't.
No, there's not even one here.
That one.
I can't get connected to the internet, so I'm going to have to use my
Yeah,
phone.
I haven't seen it. I don't get
Oh,
pictures.
you're dead?
And I'm at 55%.
That was just
I hope it runs to the meeting, but there's no guarantee
Yeah.
with my phone.
Can you,
Sometimes it
can you,
dies.
I'll check her.
can you make your
yeah.
phone a, can you make your phone a, there's lights right there. Can you make your phone a hotspot?
It is hotspot, but I'm afraid it won't last. I'm worried about it dying before the end of the meeting. That's what I was trying to, I have a battery, I just don't have the charge cord with me.
You didn't get working?
I got my son a hotspot. My 55%. I have a lightning cable. You know, I have a battery. Is it Android? So see if you have a real phone.
Here we go.
I can go out and
I think I want to go to
No. Tiffany knows that still people use Android and Windows. Right, Tiff?
Yeah. Sure.
You're much more involved. I heard you say that. One class that I really need the narrative. But I didn't really need it.
And then when I am lagging behind.
Where's that? You got brother Mitch. Mitch Mike. I was thinking there's one other one too, but I can't think of his name.
I guess at the Troy volleyball game, we have to turn people away.
I don't know, but I thought there was three
I
boys.
thought there were 3 boys, and I don't know, his mother was not well.
No, I was sure this year.
I haven't seen anybody for a long time. She was kind of with
I assume it was here. Mitch said that at the Troy game,
Go on, yeah, I said, Brian told me what happened last year. I can see it.
it's the first time we've had.
I can see it. Oh, yeah. That's all softball means work. The kid is right. That's what I'm talking about. I'm thinking, what are you doing? Dude, I'm right here. He's got a house. Yeah, you got a wife. Yeah, Broxton don't live down there anymore, man.
No, he's got a house out on the park.
There's my phone. Robot.
I thought something was ready for dinner. And the cookies were done, or?
Sharp, where's the other Sharp?
He's got 25 and 2 months in shop. Almost 29.
Good thing I didn't wear a skirt tonight. Good thing I didn't wear a skirt tonight.
Well, she's 25 and 29.
Jason Becker was up there. But I just have to finish with her. No. It's on me. Can you give me a brand new
Yeah, he married somebody that he was like 3 years.
My legislative report. Way more info than I'm actually going to share. So for Jeff gives us.
Right. Like that one? Anyway. There you go. He should be. His first wife,
And then I highlighted what I actually.
her husband. Tiger, he was super nice. Is that where you live? That's where all the pictures are coming from. That's a rock.
Really?
I still do my read the sign language way.
Well, you're in the party.
Too much. Because I used to do sign language. I wanted to make sure I did it the right way. And so this is
The money is not going to non-public?
I'm very much friendly.
The emergency funds for non-public technical services are no longer in effect.
Thank you.
The rule was struck down by Judge Daphne.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
That was just on the other end.
okay. I didn't see that. That's good.
But I wanted to make sure I understood that correctly.
Yeah, that's good.
Inside.
And it should be like,
I wouldn't do it. You can get crippled that way.
Great to show it that way. I know, but I've never done it before.
I've got a co-board member who got pretty beat up.
He actually was almost thinking about
He's the boss. And then he's I want it.
Someone who's going to be placed.
He said it would be.
Yes.
And then we're trying to get her.
Linda, would you down see Sergeant Baker saying?
I was down there, but it was too late. So we get down there at about 20 after.
We just went down, got some coins, that's fine.
I love to do
Roger. No, but he doesn't mind lunch anymore. Roger talking to some other. Mike, would you please call roll?
Bob Smith.
Here.
Mandy Croft.
here,
Linda Meininger.
Here.
Michelle Lott.
Here.
Jason Schaffner.
Here.
All present.
Great. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a regularly stated meeting of the City School Board for the purpose of conducting
Bob,
our...
it's hard to hear out here.
Oh, you are right. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Tiffany. This is a regular stated meeting of the City School Board for the purpose of conducting our business. And Tiffany, we have some visitors. Could you introduce them, please?
And with us tonight, we have Jason McLean, Mike Shonk, Tracy Landrum, Lisa Westerbeck, Brenda Thompson, Reba Tippie, Jennifer Calhoun, Kenneth Chavez, Erica Foster Wheeler, Sharonda Johnson, Renee Hamilton, Dave Hall, Brian Moses, and Brooke Gessler.
Thank you. For the board, do we have any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda will stand as presented. Next item is public participation. Tiffany, do we have any individuals who would like to speak?
Yeah, Tracy Landrum has marked that she would like to speak.
Great. So before we start, I had to make notes to myself to make sure I do this correctly. When you step up to the microphone, please state your name and address clearly. And you will be given 3 minutes. Direct your comments toward me. It's not a Q&A session, but at the end, we'll see if there's anything we can do to help. So who's the first individual? Was it
Tracy.
Tracy?
Good evening, my name is Tracy Landrum, and I live at 120 Twinbrook Place, Sydney, Ohio. And up here I have some supporters with me today as well. So I would like to address that at the May 18, 2020 board meeting, approximately 70 classified aides were illegally terminated due to reduction in force. Continuing contract status and seniority were totally ignored and was a violation of both the Ohio Revised Code 3319.172. The Board of Education shall suspend contracts, not terminate. In accordance with the recommendation of the superintendent, give preference first to employees under continuing contract and then to employees on the basis of seniority. Any non-teaching employee whose continuing contract is suspended shall have the right of restoration to continuing service status by the Board of Education that suspended that contract in order of seniority of service. If and when a non-teaching position for which the employee is qualified becomes vacated or created, Board Policy number 4131 has the same language. Principals were told to rate all terminated aides, and the highest rated aides were then called back and given one-year contracts, replacing many of these aides that had continuing contracts and were special need aides, oftentimes replaced by aides who had no experience with special needs students. Consider this fact: Sydney City Schools has minority enrollment of approximately 21%, yet every one of the minority aides was ripped with continuing contracts, leaving our school district with 0 minority aides, along with the IT department, who was also ripped, and several having continuing contracts and then outsourced to a third-party company. In addition, a continuing contract secretary was called into superintendent's office at the end of the last school year and told her she was being replaced with someone that was a better fit and seniority did not make any difference. Is this the new standard way Sydney City employees are to be treated? The only reason why that a class action suit was not brought forward was the financial burden to do so for some, but does not speak for all. Thank you.
Make sure thank you for your comments. Have you brought your questions and concerns to the superintendent?
I have emailed Lisa Beigel because I haven't been notified of any job openings or anything, and I gave my personal email and my cell phone number and emailed it to her and said if a position comes available, I do know my recall rights, and I sent an email and I still have them, and I have yet to be notified at all of a position, which I see a position of an MD spot that is filled right now and was not an employee of Sydney City Schools before.
Well, the first thing is I'm going to ask Mr. Humble, can you follow up on some of these concerns? That is one thing. The second thing is, as everybody knows right now, financially the district is in a very difficult place. And the non-renewal of those aides was a painful and difficult decision for all of us. It wasn't a decision that was made easily, but that was a path that we had to go down. The other thing I would like to ask Mr. Humble, Tracy had mentioned giving you the email address. Can we get an email address for all of the individuals who were non-renewed? And when we send out the email in the district for a posting, would there be a way that we could also include those individuals in that notification?
We can do that, but we have changed that and we're going to start posting that on our Facebook. So job postings will be posted now on our Facebook, on the Sydney, the school's Facebook page.
Maybe if we could do both, then that would give us double coverage in that area.
Sure.
Because I know we do
If
the internal.
they want to provide that, that's fine. We could do that.
But that wasn't an internal, those aren't internal hires.
Those are not internal hires that were just hired, and we were not notified or put on notice of any job openings coming available. Whether it's reduced hours or anything, that is part of their recall rights.
Okay, well, the first step is going to be, I'm going to recommend you to the superintendent. And then if you get no help there, please bring it back to the board and we will take it to the next step. Because that is the process we are to
They
follow.
have our email addresses from our.
Thank you. Tiffany, did we have a second speaker as well?
No, I don't think so.
That was it? Just to make sure, is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Okay, hearing none, we will move on with the agenda. Next item is the treasurer's report.
All right, the first item are the minutes, financial reports, and invoices paid. I'd like to request a motion to approve those minutes, the financial reports and invoices paid as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So,
Linda, Jason?
Okay. Did everybody have a chance? You wanted to open up the narrative before I moved on? Okay. Just briefly, for the August financials, we're only 2 months into the fiscal year, very early to make any annual assumptions on what we're seeing. But on the revenue side, we did receive all of our final collections for the first half of the fiscal year. They came in at $147,000 less than what was budgeted for the first half of the year. My initial concern was with everything that occurred with the COVID, the loss of jobs and those type of things, that was possibly due to maybe some delinquencies that we were seeing, which eventually get collected at some point. We're thinking that might possibly be some of the rationales for what that was. I dug in a little farther, and here's the thing that's it's confusing sometimes for people on property taxes, is that first of all, we collect them a year later, and they are split differently than our fiscal year, so we don't collect in the same timing. So the collections for this first half of our fiscal year is actually for the second half of 2019. So as I went back and did a little research, what it does appear is that our actual first half collections, which would have been in last fiscal year, the end of last fiscal year, were a little bit more than what they normally had been in some years past. And so I believe what has happened is we actually had some accelerated collections in the first half of the 2019 tax collections, which is the second half of our fiscal 20, which then carried over to have fewer collections in the first half of our fiscal year now. It's very, very possible, though, that we will see in the second half of our fiscal year, when we're collecting this year's taxes, easily make up that difference. That's not a significant difference in our overall tax collections. So, and all the other items, really, the state foundation pretty much right on course with what we would expect, since the funding has been frozen for the last 2 years, and nothing of any real consequence on any of the other items. On the expenditure side, our salaries and benefits are trending better than our budget to this point, although we are still phasing into all the new salary contracts for the fiscal year and so forth. Everything is fully in place by the end of September, and we'll begin to see how those all begin to flush out throughout the course of the year, because all the projections are made on percentages of the prior years and how they fell for month to month, and so they begin to close or become a little more accurate as we go through, although they're only a little over 3% difference right now, but still trending the way we'd like to see them. Purchase services, which last year was a real stickler to us, and for the second month is trending more than budget. Still a little early to be concerned, but I definitely will be keeping a real close eye on that as we progress through the first quarter. Supplies and materials, capital outlay, and miscellaneous are all trending favorably compared to budget. So while there are some variances, nothing of any real concern or significance in the first 2 months.
Any questions from anyone? Not specifically for this month, but the governor's reduction in school funding that we had at the end of last year, do we have any updates on how that might look going
Yeah,
forward?
great point. Glad you brought that up. As I was actually looking for a forecast for coming up in November here the last week or so. Our original projection from the end of last fiscal year is that we could possibly have seen double the reduction that we saw in fiscal year 20. And to this point in time, and I believe as long as businesses continue to be able to stay open, things don't tighten, and if they even relax a little bit more, it appears now we will not have a reduction more than that for this year. So that's really very favorable news for our budget.
Thank you. No more questions? Mike, would you please call roll?
Meyer,
Yes.
Schaffner,
Yep.
Croft,
Yes.
Lot,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Everybody a chance to get it. That's okay. Linda, were you able to?
I don't know. I must have to get back out.
And come back in. I'll go ahead and get this one if you want to go ahead and do that. We'll move on to the next one, our annual appropriations. I'd like to request a motion to approve the attached annual appropriation resolution as recommended.
Do I have a motion? Michelle? Second?
Second.
Jason?
This is one of those housekeeping items we do every year at this time. In June, we pass what are temporary appropriations, which allow us to begin expending money at the beginning of the fiscal year. The annual appropriations are the estimated expenses we would anticipate for the entire year. Compared to, give you a little insight as to how we look at compared to last year. The overall appropriations for this year compared to last year is actually up significantly, $4.8 million. But that is really due to a number of the COVID initiatives that we've seen. We've received some ESSER funds, $627,000 for that. We've received $250,000 grants, all related to COVID relief and those type of things. We have received some additional title funding and a number of areas. Let's see, what was some of the others we had? Their student wellness success funds. Some things that we hadn't had in previous years are increasing the overall. But for the general fund itself, our appropriations are only increased a little over $400,000 from last year. One of the significant things that should be recognized is that that is in areas other than salary. The salary estimate for appropriations this year is actually down $900,000. So, which would be attributed to the cost-cutting measures we've been taking to bring expenditures back in, or to reduce expenditures and compared to where our revenues are going.
Any questions? Mike, would you please call roll?
Lot,
Yes.
Schaffner,
Yep.
Meyer,
Yes.
Croft,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
And the motion carries.
You may just need to vote for Linda.
And that's fine. Yeah, that's no problem whatsoever. The next item is for donations. I'd like to request a motion to accept the following donations. $150 from the Book Club of Sydney for the Emerson Elementary Library, and $3,900 from Gay Smith for the pre-K to second grade teachers.
Do I have a motion? Linda?
Second.
Michelle? Any conversation besides thank you? Hearing none, will you call roll, please?
Meiniger,
Yes.
Lot,
Yes.
Croft,
Yes.
Schaffner,
Yep.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries. And my last item is for IT services. I'd like to request a motion to enter into an agreement with VARTech for IT support specialist services for 12 months at a cost of $112,240.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mandy? Linda? And Mike, I believe this is funded with,
I'm sorry, who's the second?
Linda.
Linda, okay. And this is a, just a one-year arrangement to help get us up to speed with where things were at the transition time between the technical staff that we had and where they assumed those responsibilities. And these services are going to be able to be paid for out of a title program. We have some funds that after our reconfiguration, the way we could spend those monies have changed, and then this fit that model. So we're able to do that, get these extra services for a year without impacting the general fund.
Any questions? Will you call roll, please?
Croft,
Yes.
Meiniger,
Yes.
Schaffner,
Yep.
Lot,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of considering compensation of an employee of the school district. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Michelle and Mandy. Any discussion? Mike, would you please call roll?
Lot,
Yes.
Croft,
Yes.
Meiniger, Schaffner,
Yep.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And we will be back shortly.
Choir or band?
Choir.
Choir.
Take my whole box.
See you later, I have no idea where you're going.
Do I now? Okay, we're back. Hopefully that was fun watching a boring blank stage for a few minutes. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
You gonna? Okay, so I request a motion to approve personnel.
Do I have a motion? Linda, do I have a second?
Second.
Mandy? So we have a motion and a second to approve the personnel as presented. And I would like to offer an amendment to that motion to remove Mike Shonk's maintenance stipend from that list. Do I have a second?
I need to create a motion here.
Oh. It's going to be Bob and Michelle. But that's not a motion, it's an amendment, right?
Motion to create an amendment.
It's just an amendment to the motion. Robert's rules are fun, huh?
You're the expert.
Oh, I'm not an expert. But correct. So we have an amendment that was seconded to remove Mike Shonk's name from the list. Is there any discussion on the amendment? That was Bob and Michelle for the amendment. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mike, would you please? Oh, you already have the other one open. Let's just do it and you can catch up on it. Let's just do it. Oh, thank you. Will you call roll, please? And this is for the amendment, not on the rest of the personnel.
Smith?
Yes.
Lot,
Yes.
Meininger,
Yes.
Croft,
Yes.
Schaffner.
Yep.
So
Motion carries.
the amendment passed, which then takes us back to the original motion for the remaining personnel. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none. Mike, would you please call roll?
Meininger,
Yes.
Croft,
Yes.
Schaffner.
Yep.
Lot,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes,
Motion carries.
although I didn't get to push the button.
There you go, bud.
It's showing that it's waiting for you. I just mark it as unanimous and we'll move on.
Yeah. Next item, Mr. Hummel.
Next, request an appointment for the official OSBA delegate and alternate for the 2020 OSBA annual business meeting.
And I think Mandy Croft said that she would be our delegate.
I volunteered to be the virtual delegate unless you really want to be, but I had a feeling you didn't want to.
No, I can do the in-house person, but I can't be the virtual person.
Do I have someone that would be the alternate? That's available during the day when I'm working at my desk?
It'll only be if I can't do it.
Yeah, but only be if man can't do it.
It's usually in
November or something.
Yes, November, it's the second week in November.
One.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sit at the meeting, and you just sit there and watch them and, you know.
Okay.
Sit and watch it.
I can't do it.
So we have Mandy as the delegate.
Mandy is the delegate, everybody else sat back, and Michelle was left in the front for the alternate.
That's what I can find out for.
So now, do we have a motion to appoint Mandy as representative and Michelle as the alternate for the 2020 Ohio School Board Association annual business meeting?
So move.
For a second.
Jason and Linda. Any discussion before they back out? Hearing none, Mike, would you call roll, please?
Schaffner,
Yep.
Meininger,
Yes.
Croft,
Yes.
Lot,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. My window disappeared.
Motion carries.
Next,
I didn't get it.
I'm sorry. I went ahead and just,
Okay.
something must have, with the delay, I'll go ahead and just mark them as called.
Okay.
request a motion to approve the bus code of conduct as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mandy,
Second.
Michelle. Any discussion? And Bob, I think this is just to codify what we're already doing.
Correct, correct. And I made an adjustment. You see that?
I saw it.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Hearing no questions, Mike, would you please call roll?
Sure. Croft,
Yes.
Lot,
Yes.
Schaffner,
Yep.
Meininger,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda is the legislative report. Mandy?
It's on? No. How do you turn it on?
I have a switch on mine. I think it's on that button you have to put it in.
Let's see if that.
On the end of it.
Oh. Really?
If you don't mind, you can smart it on.
Yeah, that sounds totally gross.
It's the red.
The red button.
Oh, you're live now.
There, it's on. So I hope that I did not mess with something that changed volume. Okay. The week of September 7th, the ODE announced that the 2020 school report cards were expected to be released on September 15th. I don't know if you've gotten to look at those, but it is there. Just there's no grades or anything. There are no grades or ratings due to the provisions in House Bill 197. Then the United States Department of Education announced that the interim final rule regarding the use of the CARES Act for the K-12 emergency relief funds for non-public equitable services is no longer in effect. The rule was struck down by U.S. District Judge Dabney Friedrich, and she indicated in her summary judgment that it would be applied nationwide. The week of September 14th, Governor DeWine signed House Bill 606. That bill prohibits bringing civil action for damages or injury or death. Basically, it's a bill that provides K-12 schools and others immunity from civil liability due to exposure of COVID-19. He also signed House Bill 272, and that expanded court jurisdiction and prohibited a public official from changing the time, place, or manner of conducting an election, and prohibits a public official from ordering the closure of all places of worship in a geographic area. The Senate Education Committee held a second hearing for Senate Bill 358. That bill is to address several COVID-related education issues for the 2020-2021 school year to provide school districts continued flexibility and relief during the COVID pandemic. The key provisions extend the items from House Bill 197 and House Bill 164, so it would allow for teacher and principal evaluations to be completed without the use of student growth measures. It would provide flexibility for students should they be unable to take end-of-course exams, to allow them to meet graduation requirements through the use of final course grades and associated classes. It would eliminate the state-required assessments and require the ODE to seek a waiver from administration of all federally required assessments. It would prohibit ODE from issuing state report cards for 2020, 21, and 21-22 school years, and establish a safe harbor from report card-related penalties for those school years. It would give districts local control in making decisions regarding promotion to fourth grade, free of third grade reading guarantee mandates, and provide local control in determining if a student is on track to graduate. The organizations also provided a joint proponent testimony, and in that they added several legislative requests in addition, so it would include provisions related to ed choice, an extension waiver authority for ODE, extension of the flexibility to hold virtual board meetings under the Open Meetings Act, elimination of the new territory transfer law, and elimination of academic distress commissions. They are urging that people contact both House and Senate members in support of the provisions in Senate Bill 358 to push for the additional items included in the testimony. So they do have contact information, and I can forward that along if you need it. Other things that came up, I think, were kind of in the works at the last meeting with the allowing sports to continue, and they're still holding sponsor testimony on House Bill 436, requiring professional development for the screening and intervention for children with dyslexia. That is pretty much it.
Thank you. Any questions? Next item is our UVCC report. Michelle?
On August 24th, the board members met in regular session. Dr. Luce began a meeting with the OACTS video titled, "What Will I Become?" The UVCC was featured in this video. Then she reported that over 1,000 students reported back for the first week of school. The feedback that she has received is that it's been a very successful start with no tardies and 100% attendance. Dr. Luce presented an update on the remote plan. She mentioned that the state requires any district that may be implementing a full remote or blended model to create a plan with certain specified components. The plan can be revised when it is determined that changes need to be made. Mr. Fraley, the treasurer, reported that the general fund started receiving tax collections in July. They received 2 advances from Shelby County and a settlement from Always County. They paid out the second of 2 contributions to the employees' HAS accounts. For 2021, this was only 40% in July because they paid out 60% in January. On the adult ed side, the only revenue received in July was from self-pay students, either by the student or from the company for which they work. There were no Pell or direct loans draws in July. In regard to the COVID-related grants, in total, UVCC has applied for $157,322 with various stipulations. They have not been awarded all of these yet. The board approved donations, textbook purchases, handbooks, the remote learning plan, and the adult division student catalog. We also approved the fiscal year 21 WOCO service level agreement. The next item on the agenda created lots of discussion after I asked for more details before voting. Todd and Emily Retterman asked the Village of Jackson Center to grant a real property tax abatement of 100% for 15 years for real property improvements. They were proposing to construct a 5-unit housing complex. Because I had never heard of an abatement for residential construction, I wanted more information. When the vote was taken, it was a unanimous no. Because Jackson Center Board of Ed had approved it, we didn't think it would have any impact on the proposal. But the next day, Dr. Luce informed us our no vote canceled the resolution. Finally, we approved many personnel recommendations. However, there was one we didn't want to accept, but we did. Dr. Nancy Luce is resigning for the purpose of retirement. We adjourned and went into executive session.
Thank you. Any questions? I know of no reason we should go back into executive session. Oops, I left my mic. So next item would be a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Jason? Michelle? Any discussion? Mike, would you call the roll, please?
Schaffner.
Yep.
Lott. Meininger.
Yes.
Croft.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all for coming.
Don't forget we have a tour.
I'll shut it down. I think he's probably coming back. Oh.
Don't worry.
Yeah,